Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Moti Gyamlani. Moti is the Senior Vice President and Global Chief Operations Officer at Ericsson, a networking and telecommunications behemoth headquartered in Stockholm that earns nearly $26.5 billion in annual revenue. In his role, Moti is responsible for a number of functions, including sourcing, IT, digital transformation, group sales, real estate, and the operations parts of people and the finance functions. He's been with Ericsson for roughly 4.5 years and has been in his current role for a little less than a year and a half. Prior to Ericsson, Moti served as an executive at companies like Airtel, GE, Honeywell, and General Motors. Look forward to speaking with him about his remarkable career, about the sorts of things that he's working on with his team at Ericsson, among a variety of topics I'm sure we'll cover here. Moti, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thank you for having me, Peter. Look forward to the chat.
I've been looking forward to it myself, so thank you. Well, Moti, let's begin with Ericsson. I gave the briefest of overviews of the business. Please share a bit more about the business that you help lead.
Okay, sure. No, very proud of being part of Ericsson. We are the bleeding edge company when it comes to technology. We do, I think, in the most rudimentary terms, when you're making a phone call, when you're going on an internet, the technology that enables that is Ericsson behind the scene. They're the world's largest company when it comes to providing the technology to operators in 180 countries. So depending on the country you are in, you may have an AT&T connection or a Verizon or Airtel. All of those are powered behind the scene by companies like Ericsson, and that's what we do.
That's a great overview. I appreciate that. And talk a bit more about your role as the Global Chief Operations Officer. I mentioned a remarkably broad purview. Talk a bit about the wisdom of knitting those functions together under a single executive.
I think the idea, I would say my role is threefold mainly, and I'll talk about how that came about. The three parts to my role. One is to run and build world-class operations, right? And you talked about a few, and that's what we do. It's kind of one of the core role. Secondly is to transform the business and the company in terms of how we do things. So the transformation is the second important part of the role. And third is to make our company much more cost competitive and agile so that in any environment, we are able to continue to invest in R&D and continue to build world-class products. The idea behind pulling these things together, because underlying any transformation, and essentially our role is to ensure we work much more efficiently as a company. All of these pieces come together from an operations perspective. So how we build that capability, how we work collaboratively among these functions, and then with the business to drive the transformation and become more agile. That's how we came about as a team.
And in terms of organizing, Moti, do you have a leader who, on top of each of the areas that I highlighted in the introduction, that you've kind of provided a nice set of categories for, as opposed to, for instance, more people like yourself that operate across multiple worlds, so to say?
Sure. No, I think in our team, we are composed of several incredibly capable leaders that I'm privileged to have on the team. So the global real estate leader is there. Head of Chief Procurement Officer is part of the team. Chief Information Officer is part of the team. Chief Data Officer is on the team as well. And then we have global sales leader. And then we also have global business services. And global business service essentially is taking the operations of the rest of the company and integrating them, such as finance or people. All of those are operating under this leader. The organization is very global, Peter, that we lead is in over 100 countries. And the leaders are also distributed. I happen to work from US, but a lot of the other leaders are all around the world.
That's an interesting topic you raised there, Moti. Can you talk a bit about that collaboration across an executive team that is not at least on a daily basis, on the same floor of the same building in the same city, as you say, broadly distributed, reflective, as you've mentioned a couple of times, of how broadly distributed the business itself is as well. How has that worked?
No, it works brilliantly, right? So I think what we typically do, we meet at least once a quarter, face to face, somewhere in the world. We then have, monthly team meetings that we always do by video call. Then we also have ops reviews, right? So we have very detailed ops reviews that we plan, where we collaborate with each other, we talk to each other, so I think net, particularly post pandemic, I think we've certainly cultivated the art of being quite effective in how we engage, and I think the team has adapted remarkably, I would say.
Well, yours is clearly a complex, broadly distributed organization. You mentioned 180 countries in which you do business. In 3 years, you'll celebrate your 150th birthday as a company. So a storied organization as well. And with that as the backdrop, you also are driving transformation. I should also mention, by the way, in terms of the complexities you need to manage through as you contemplate transformation, is that you also operate in a highly regulated industry to boot. Talk about that within that context, how transformation is taking place.
No, I think you're right. It's when I took on the role, I felt incredibly excited and lucky to have an opportunity to lead such an awesome company and transform. The fact that we are as global, 180 countries, like you mentioned, 105,000 people, average tenure, Peter, in the company would be 20 plus years. We are an incredibly people-oriented company. People love working here. But the fact that anytime you've got an organization with a tenure of 20 plus years, then we are used to working in a certain way, and then transformation brings its own challenges, right? We are regulated because data privacy, data security is a big deal for a company. So anything we do from a data perspective, we need to make sure that we are thoughtful, and then we meet the government regulations as well as secure the privacy of people that we ultimately serve. So I think ultimately, in that context, the way we think about transformation, we think about at the core employee and customers. So what we do, everything we do is about how do we delight our customers? How do we make sure it's easier for our customers to work with Ericsson, and how it is easier for our employees to be part of Ericsson to get their work done. So that's the core of what we do and or what we enable to the company.
Can you provide some examples just to provide us a little bit more specific context in terms of transformation? What are some examples of what you're driving, please?
If I think about customers, so I'll take one example. We are right in the middle of implementing. So think about the fact that the customer has selected us and now they are wanting to place an order. We want to enable them so that they can do that in a day. Typically, it has taken us about 30 days from the time they get the requirements till they can place an order and the order is accepted within Ericsson system. It can take up to 30 days. Now we're trying to do this in a day by making sure we redesign our processes, redesign our interface, and make sure things become a lot more seamless so that a combination of process simplification and digitization, we can do this in a day. If I move to an employee experience, the one of the ones we are working on right now is how we significantly reduce time to onboard a new employee, right? An executive or an engineer or somebody in finance. Again, we want to cut the lead time to less than half, and we want to become in top 25% of the global companies in terms of the index. So we're quite proud. And third thing, what we are doing, Peter, is we want to make sure that it's not our team alone that ultimately enables simplification, right? We do believe we want to cultivate a culture where every member of 105,000 employees within Ericsson is equipped with the capability so that they can take few things and then simplify them significantly. So we run essentially, Six Sigma training, and we basically do green belt, yellow belt, and black belt trainings where people bring projects, they get trained, they simplify. So we are hoping gradually we propagate and we allow the entire company to have the capability of being able to simplify.
I also wanted to ask you, Moti, about supply chain. It is one of the areas of responsibility, as we both highlighted. It's also an area that you've led across multiple of the storied organizations I mentioned before, Airtel, GE, some aspects of your role at Honeywell as well. And so it's a topic you know quite well. It's a topic that is more recently in the minds of the general public, especially through the course of COVID, given some of the complexities of managing through supply chain issues born of a variety of issues associated with it, among other areas. And as somebody who's been so deeply has been a deep expert in this at scale across numerous organizations, and now still have responsibilities there, I'd love your own perspectives about how you think about creating a world-class supply chain.
It has significantly changed over the last 5 years. A combination of two things, right? I would say geopolitics. I think there is more stress, whether you look at US, China, you look at Ukraine, Russia war. And overall, right, natural calamities have gone up significantly, right? Natural disasters have gone up. So I think resilience, supply chain resilience has become really important. Secondly, I think COVID, the impact on supply chain was so significant. Again, it kind of underscored the need to build and drive a resilient supply chain. So there's a lot of work we are doing, probably not different from many other companies, where we are making sure there is a resilience of every kind in place, whether it's a geopolitical resilience where we are able to secure and procure material from more than one country. Should there be a reason or a tension or a preference by a customer, we've got that level of flexibility that we are building. But the tricky part is, how do you do that while making sure you can still be really fast in product development? You can be competitive in cost, because anytime you are splitting your volume across various supply chains, there is an argument to make. The economies of scale are no longer the same. Supply chain costs may go up. Certain countries may not have the natural resources, the cost may go up. So how do you bring that balance of making sure that you're fast to market, you are meeting customer need, you are competitive? Brings an awesome challenge, but it's something I can say quite proudly, just a phenomenal work that we've done as a company to make sure not only we create resilience, but we remain very competitive.
Another of your responsibilities, as you noted, is real estate. And what an interesting topic these days, as various organizations, Ericsson, I'm sure among them, is rethinking how one's real estate footprint can be optimized, and how best to determine when to collaborate in offices and when to operate virtually. We've already talked about how the executive team itself gets together on a quarterly basis, which then assumes that for long periods of time collaborates extensively through virtual means as well. Talk a bit about your own perspectives, if you would, from the perspective of the future of work, the return to the office, and the downstream implications on your real estate.
That one I'm quite proud, right? So we are doing some really, cutting edge work. Credit to the team that leads this effort. And we are essentially, what we've done is we have looked at the persona. So we've looked at different kinds of individuals within our company. So there could be a manufacturing individual, to an R&D, to somebody in finance or sourcing or a business. So they all have their unique needs, right? And they have a typical day. And if you were to break the day, you would recognize there is some reading time, there is time to collaborate, there is time to innovate, there is time to seek clarification. So depending on what it is, we essentially believe certain type of work is best done at home, and there's certain work done at work, right? By being in the office, near to your colleagues, so and so forth. So what we have essentially done is understood that we as a company deeply believe in flexibility. And so what we want to do is to equip the managers, leaders, as well as the employees, kind of allowing them to introspect what is it that would likely be best for them, yet providing them the flexibility. We are redesigning our offices for the right amount of footprint, but also making sure that they are more suitably located, better designed for the technology as well as the collaborative space, making them more inviting, make them more exciting, having areas where they can go relax as well as collaborate and have a lot of technology. So we've done quite a bit of innovative work in this area, and we're quite proud. The journey continues, by the way. We are still in the middle of it, but a quite interesting work underway right now.
Well, I appreciate you sharing those perspectives, and we'll be fascinated to see how that continues to evolve and the learnings that continue to come from that, Moti. I also wanted to ask you, as a telecommunications organization, yours is one that is, innovative from a technology perspective in a whole range of ways, and actually delivers a lot of the fundamental or foundational technology to enable so many others, as you pointed out, deliver what they do. One of the topics from a tech perspective that is certainly on the minds of many, arguably most, within the tech realm and beyond, is generative artificial intelligence, Gen AI. And I know from some past off the record conversations that you also are putting a lot of thought into its potential use in an organization like Ericsson. I wonder now what conclusions you're drawing and areas where you see this playing a fundamental role.
I think we are, the way we think about Gen AI, we are looking at it both for product and the product development in terms of how Gen AI can play a role there to help be a buddy to our R&D engineers so that it could free up their capacity to have more time for innovation, right? So that's kind of one area we are delving into. And the second area we're delving into is more around efficiency and productivity in terms of how we, so think of marketing pitch has to be written or some basic level of legal work has to happen and or, operations, right, that have to happen. So how we integrate that work so that, again, we allow higher order of work being done and people becoming more productive, enjoying their work more by having something like Gen AI help with them with the basic work. So the way we are doing it is, again, we have created some sort of a sandbox within our company, and we are gradually opening the sandbox, educating, of course, training our employees and leaders in terms of do's and don'ts and how they should be thinking about, because we do very, very advanced work, right? So what work needs to be done, how and where, from data security, data protection, but equally how you leverage the technology to benefit the company. So we are increasing the number of people every practical day so that more and more people could benefit from the technology. So we're quite excited to see what's around the corner leveraging this technology.
Yeah, very interesting. If I can return for a moment, though, with a different avenue to pursue, to your history as both a supply chain, as we talked about, but also a sourcing and procurement executive for much of the past 25 years across many of in fact, all of the companies I mentioned in the introduction, you have had those sets of responsibilities. And indeed, you joined Ericsson as a global chief procurement officer 4.5 years ago. I mentioned a little earlier that just shy of a year and a half ago, you took on your current COO responsibilities. Talk a bit about the role of procurement and supply chain and how that provided you with the foundation to take on this consequential and broad set of responsibilities at Ericsson. I'd be interested in, as somebody who has been so deeply and foundationally involved in these across numerous scaled organizations, how that provided you this platform to grow in the way that you have.
I would say two things, right? One, overall, supply chain sourcing, these are incredibly, if you do well, the complex roles, right? There is a lot of strategy to it, and there is a lot of operational excellence to it for you to do a really good job. And and if you want to do really well, you need to be deeply integrated in the business. It's not a function that you can do well being a siloed, right? So you need to be able to understand how you can cover white spots in your product portfolio by leveraging supplier products, right? How you can increase the innovation of the company by leveraging the innovation of suppliers. Just at Ericsson, right, we spend about $4.5 billion in R&D every year. Suppliers spend over $50 billion together, right? So how are we tapping into the technology and how are we aiding our R&D teams, therefore, to do more? I'll give you a very interesting example without talking about a product, but an important product that we took on. We did a very interesting R&D workshop, bringing a bunch of suppliers, and we substantially altered the cost structure of one of our important product, right? So to me, if a supply chain, to me, maybe I'm biased, but it provides you the platform to truly integrate yourself into how you enable sales, to how you be competitive, how you enable more competitive R&D, so on and so forth. So I think it does provide you a deep integration to the business, deep appreciation for the business. So it does prepare you to take on broader and more complex roles. And I think it's a little bit about you as well. Should you choose to take initiative and you have deep curiosity to learn more, I think that you are prepared that much more for taking on broader roles. So I don't think it's an accident. More and more supply chain leaders have taken on quite important roles all the way to CEO. So and I think post pandemic, the recognition of the function has grown significantly, right? So I can't wait to see around the corner in a few years more people taking prominent positions,
Yeah.
leveraging their background.
Keen insights. Thank you for sharing that, Moti. We've talked already about a number of critically important technology and just general trends, Gen AI. We've talked about some of those associated with supply chain transformation, more generally speaking. Any other trends that particularly excite you, Moti, as you look to the future?
I would say close to home would be 6G, right? So as you know, we are working on 5G that already enables substantially lower lead time to get things done. Latencies are very, very low. So think about autonomous vehicle, there's so much already happening in the roads of San Francisco. But just can you visualize that leveraging 6G, how latency will go down enough that the autonomous vehicles will become safer. It would truly become possibility for people who don't have access to medical today could get consultation support from physicians from far below, and then over time, even remote surgeries will become possible. So the art of possibility is very high, leveraging 6G and what it can do in terms of good to the society of helping all kinds of people and all across walks of life to do things that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So really excited about what the 6G is about to bring.
Fascinating insights there. We'll look forward to staying tuned as that continues to unfold. I also wanted to ask you, Moti, as somebody who's been successful across numerous organizations, has played chief roles now, literally and figuratively, across a great number of large enterprises. What have been some of the secrets to your success as you've risen to these posts? What would have been some of the difference makers along the way, and maybe tune towards advice to others who might wish to have a similar shape to their career?
No, thank you. And I would say, in all candor, that I've been very lucky to have just some great mentors along the way. There were people who not only coached me but took bets. So I would say immense credit to those leaders to place the trust that they placed in me to allow me to get where I got to. But I think other than that, I would argue that of course, your core hard work and effort always helps. I would say curiosity helps immensely. It also helps that you typically don't see your role siloed and a functional, but you see yourself truly as a business stakeholder, truly trying to figure out how we need to enable the company objectives. And then you find a way to augment that. I talked about earlier how you could look at growing sales, how you could actually augment white spaces through suppliers, as an example, or drive much more innovation in the company. So if you were to see your role as a key enabler, not a functional leader, I have seen often people embrace you and your teams, and you get more and more tightly integrated into the business where you become an integral part rather than a necessary evil, right? So I would say deep curiosity, being a business stakeholder ahead of functional stakeholders, having the courage to ask questions that you don't have an answer to, and not being shy, and a lot of curiosity, I would say would be probably some of the things to think about.
Great wisdom you've shared there, Moti. Thank you so much for those reflections. And thank you more generally for a terrific conversation reflective of the remarkable work that you and your team are doing at Ericsson. Your post as the Global Chief Operations Officer, a bit about your background and the elements of it that have allowed you to achieve the consequential heights that you have. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much, Moti.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.